Action!
Hi, Kate. It's Ben O'Shea from the West Australian in Perth. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. It's great to talk to you. And firstly, congratulations on the film. Like, you've just done such an extraordinary job of honouring Lee Miller's life and legacy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's what we set out to do, so that's very good to hear.
You must be Lee Miller.
It's a war zone, Colonel. Just Lee is fine.
Just Lee. We don't send women to combat.
Well, that's a problem, because I'm here.
You've invested so much in this film personally for years, for so many years, through ups and downs. But what I would love to know is, after all of that, what did it feel like that first day on set to actually be inhabiting her life?
The first day on set, really, I couldn't believe it was happening. I was like, my God, we're really here. We're really bringing this thing to life. It's really coming off the page. It was an overwhelming feeling. I was also, I have to tell you, in a huge amount of pain because the day before we started shooting, I had injured myself doing a rehearsal for a part of the scene running through the streets of San Marlo, and I slipped on a marble floor that was covered in sand, and I just went like an ice rink, bang. I mean, I still think about it now, and I just flinch and shudder, and we thought I had broken my coccyx, and very, very fortunately I had not, but I had 2 vertebrae that had come out and 2 that had gone in, and 4 hematomas on my spine. I didn't even know that was a thing that you could get, but I was in absolute agony and had to carry on. I just had to carry on. You know, what you're going to do, call an insurance day on day one? Not a chance, especially not on an independent film that I'd waited that long to start making. So I just carried on, and then Antony Penrose told me that, ironically, Lee Miller went through the whole of the war with excruciating back pain. And I was like, great, thanks, Lee. That was a sign I didn't need you to send me right now.
What was a moment during the development of this film where you thought maybe it just can't happen, or did you never have that moment?
Oh no, I had that moment many times. And this was because this was my first experience being a producer. I had executive produced things before, but that is very different. Being a producer really is, you're there right from the very beginning. You stay with it, you keep going, you put it together, and I'm still basically doing it now. And so it was a whole new experience. And because I had 5 years totally by myself putting it together with the support of Antony Penrose, Lee's son, I definitely had moments where I would just think, oh my God, is this ever going to come together? Is it going to ever be a reality? And it's not an unusual feeling, but I certainly, I definitely felt sort of spurred on by that. Whenever I would think, oh God, keep going. I would think really of Antony Penrose, because even though it's now been 9 years since I started putting the film together, for him, it's like nearly 40 years that he's waited to see a film made about his mother. And actually it's been an amazing thing to witness him watch the film, and he was really a part of it, very much a creative part of it for me. And he sort of has a sense of closure now that the film has been made, and that's really, really amazing. So yeah, he was the thing that kept me going.
I believe that he has a box of screenplays from previous attempts to turn his mum's life into a film. It seems that they were projects either written by blokes or they were going to be directed by blokes, and for whatever reason they didn't get off the ground. What do you think was wrong with those projects, or that maybe wasn't quite right about those projects, that you have been able to capture with this film?
Yeah, so I think what you say is true. Like, there wasn't actually anything wrong with them. In fact, I read one of them, and it was a really fantastic screenplay. But I said to Tony, why didn't you feel that any of those ones were right? And he just simply said they just didn't really quite get her. And that was very meaningful to me, because it was validation that this Lee, the real Lee, who we depict in our 10 years that we cover of her life in our film, Tony really did feel was an accurate, authentic depiction of who his mother was. Because Lee had been so often viewed through the male gaze. You know, she was described, and she still is, if you Google her, as the ex-lover and muse of Man Ray, the former Vogue cover girl. These really sort of infantilizing labels that are incredibly reductive, actually, and just make her seem as though her work was insignificant, when actually she did that. That was a snippet of her life in her 20s, and she hated being a model, and she couldn't wait to get away from that business. And she'd always loved photography. She'd learnt it from her father. She was very comfortable with a camera. And so this decade of her life, when she fought to go to the front line, she fought to have a right to enter those male-dominated spaces and to document the truth of the Nazi regime for female readers of British Vogue. It was the most selfless act of courage of any female character that I'd ever come across in my life. And that's why I wanted to play her, and that was why I wanted to tell this particular story.
We drove into the worst of it all.
I need a light over here.
Here.
I'm fascinated in the parallel between Lee's life and what she went through. She was, so fierce in her determination to challenge gender roles and expectations, and how patriarchy wanted to keep women in these, safe little boxes, with the entertainment industry, because society has changed so much over the years in terms of gender equality, but the entertainment industry feels like it has lagged behind in many ways, and has a history of infantilizing women, diminishing the role of women. And now, even still, we're at a point where if there's a female-led film with a female director and a female-driven plot, it's a novelty. It's not the norm. So I guess, how have you navigated that in your career?
By never giving up. I mean, honestly, it's the simplest answer I could possibly give you. And I do think that this industry is evolving. I think it has evolved enormously since I started out 32 years ago. There was a period of time when there just weren't enough roles for women. There weren't enough parts to go around. We also lived in a time, certainly when Heavenly Creatures was made, for example, where there were, when I lived in England, three television stations, and there was voiceover work and a bit of radio, maybe, the odd commercial, maybe, some very big films like Star Wars, and then these little gems like Heavenly Creatures. But that was it. Now we have all these streaming services. Films are made in a much more abundant way now, and it has all changed. But again, this is part of why I wanted to make this film. If we aren't making female-driven stories and we aren't celebrating the lives of historically significant women like Lee Miller, then we're just simply not doing it. And that's not me. So the way that I live is just to get out there and do it, a lot like Lee. Just keep going, not giving up, not taking no for an answer. That sense of resilience and determination, it counts for a great deal in life, and certainly in the film industry, you have to have it in bucket loads. And so that's how I do it.
Yeah, and very well too.
Thank you.
Now, the relationships with three men in this film tell us a lot about who Lee is. The relationship with her husband Roland, of course, with her son Tony, and with her friend David. So I'm keen to talk to you about the actors who play those roles. Like, tell me about Alexander as Roland.
Oh my God, Alex Skarsgard. I mean, all of these men were just wonderful. They were all great. They're all fun. They're all professional. They're lovely, good people. And that was such a gift, because it didn't necessarily have to be that way. And we got very, very lucky that they were so wonderful. Alex Skarsgard, he showed up. He was ready to go. He's just a prepared, steady actor. And that's who Roland was in Lee's life. He was this very steady presence. He was utterly accepting of her. where others were often not quite as accepting of who Lee was, for all her sort of the warts and all of Lee Miller. Roland adored her. He absolutely loved her. He respected her, and he admired her enormously. And we were so very lucky to have Alex Skarsgard. He was just heaven. He was really fantastic to spend time with. And Andy Samberg, who plays Davy Scherman, again, you know, he came so prepared. He wanted to know everything about Davy Scherman he possibly could, things that he couldn't find either online or in books I had access to or I had been able to source for him. And it was a different role for him, you know. He's typically a comedian. He's done mostly comedic roles for his entire career. He was a long-running cast member of SNL, obviously Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But I've worked with comedic actors in the past, Jim Carrey, Jack Black, Seth Rogen, and I know that comedians are among some of the most interesting and often detailed, deep thinkers of anyone I've ever met. And so I really believed that Andy was going to be able to do this and play his first ever serious role. And he just stepped right up to the plate and was collaborative and wonderful. Josh O'Connor came to us hot off the heels of something else. He had just finished, and he was panicking because he had never done that before, of coming from one thing to another. But rather brilliantly, he had done all his preparation for Lee before the film that he did right before us. So he'd done it months in advance. He'd spent time with Antony Penrose. He'd asked him every single question that he'd needed to ask. And he was just showed up, and we were just on it together, you know. And just did it and made lots of great discoveries along the way, as well as having Antony Penrose at the end of a phone if we needed him, which so often we did, which was wonderful. And I was very lucky to have all our brilliant cast and our wonderful women, Andrea Riseborough, Marion Cotillard. I mean, my God, they were all just terrific, great, good people, brilliant actors. And I just felt so lucky to be with all of them.
Yeah, the scene with you and Marion Cotillard in her apartment in France in Paris after it's been liberated. I get hairs standing up on the back of my neck just thinking about that scene. Kate, we've run out of time, unfortunately. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and congratulations again on the film. Like, absolutely marvelous work.
Thank you so much. That's really kind. Thank you. Thank you.
And cut.